In 284 CE, Rome had burned through over 50 emperors in just 50 years. Most were murdered, the currency was worthless, the borders were collapsing. Then a former slave's son took the throne and did something no emperor had done in half a century. He retired peacefully 21 years later to a palace that still stands today in Croatia. Diocletian's palace in Split is physical proof this story is real. How did Diocletian pull off what seemed impossible? It started with a simple realization. Rome's problem wasn't military, it was administrative. Look at this timeline. From 235 to 284, the average emperor lasted about 2.5 years. Most died violently. The empire couldn't function because no one stayed in power long enough to fix anything. But the deeper problem was money. Rome couldn't pay its army because it couldn't collect taxes efficiently. The currency had been debased so many times that coins contained almost no silver. Soldiers couldn't buy supplies with worthless money. Diocletian understood that winning battles meant nothing if you couldn't pay the troops who fought them. So Diocletian built something Rome had never had, a systematic tax collection machine. Here's why this was hard. Taxing income is easy when employers report wages. Taxing wealth is difficult because no one reports your land's true value. Diocletian created a formula. Tax burden depended on land quality multiplied by acreage, plus your labor force, plus any improvements like mills or irrigation. Someone with extensive poor land and few workers paid less than someone with half the acreage but better soil and more laborers. This wasn't arbitrary, it was calculated. Farmer A with 100 acres of poor land and 5 workers might owe 55 tax units. Farmer B with 50 acres of good land and the 10 workers owes 85. The system had teeth. Diocletian implemented 15-year reassessment cycles, bureaucratic infrastructure that lasted for centuries, and enforcement, collective punishment. If your neighbor evaded taxes, you might be punished or taxed for their share. Communities policed themselves because everyone had skin in the game. This was ruthless, but it worked. For the first time in decades, Rome could predict its revenue and actually collect it. The treasury filled, but collecting taxes was only half the battle. What do you do when the money you collect is worthless? Diocletian's solution was radical: bypass currency entirely. Under the old system, provinces paid taxes in coins. Those coins went to the treasury paid soldiers. Soldiers used coins to buy supplies from merchants. But when coins are worthless, this chain breaks. Diocletian created a new system. Provinces paid taxes in goods, grain, cloth, leather, weapons. These goods went directly to the army. Soldiers received supplies instead of money they couldn't spend. This was essentially a command economy for the military. No inflation problem because no currency involved. The army got fed, equipped, and housed through logistics rather than markets. It wasn't elegant, but it kept 400,000 soldiers in the field. Now, Diocletian faced his biggest challenge, the empire itself. Rome stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine to the Sahara. One person couldn't manage it. Threats emerged faster than any emperor could respond. Diocletian admitted what no emperor would: the job was too big for one person. In 285, he appointed Maximian as Caesar, a junior emperor. In 286, he elevated Maximian to co-Augustus, a senior emperor. By 293, he completed the system: 2 Augusti and 2 Caesars, the Tetrarchy, rule of 4. Each ruler controlled a quarter of the empire with clear geographic responsibilities. The design was elegant. Augusti held supreme authority. Caesars served as junior partners and designated heirs. To ensure loyalty, Caesars married the Augustus' daughters. Family bonds reinforced political ones. When an Augustus retired or died, his Caesar would step up, then appoint a new Caesar. perpetual succession without civil war. Diocletian stationed himself in the east, closer to the wealthy provinces and the Persian frontier. Maximian held the west. The Caesars handled the most dangerous borders, the Rhine and the Danube. 4 emperors meant 4 armies responding to 4 frontiers simultaneously. For 20 years, this elegant system worked. Follow the timeline. 284, Diocletian takes power. 285, appoints first Caesar. 286, elevates Maximian to co-Augustus. 293, completes the Tetrarchy with Galerius and Constantius as Caesars. Then 305, the real test. Diocletian and Maximian abdicate simultaneously. Peaceful transition. The Caesars become Augusti. New Caesars are appointed. The system works exactly as designed. This was unprecedented. Roman emperors didn't retire. They were murdered or died in battle. Diocletian walked away to his palace in Split to grow cabbages. When urged to return to power, he reportedly said his cabbages were more important. The Tetrarchy had achieved the impossible. Then in 306, it all fell apart. Constantius, the Western Augustus, died. His son Constantine expected to succeed him. But the Tetrarchy's rules said otherwise. The other Augustus should appoint a new Caesar. Constantine's troops proclaimed him Augustus anyway. He refused to accept the rules that excluded him. Within 6 years, the Tetrarchy dissolved into civil war. By 312, Constantine emerged as sole ruler. The lesson: systems that depend on everyone following the rules collapse when someone defects. One ambitious heir destroyed 20 years of careful design. The Tetrarchy failed, but Diocletian's administrative revolution survived. His tax system influenced European taxation for centuries. The bureaucratic infrastructure he built outlasted the empire itself, and his most consequential decision, dividing the empire into East and West, shaped the next millennium. The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 CE, less than 2 centuries after Diocletian. The Eastern Roman Empire, what we call Byzantium, lasted until 1453, over 1,000 years longer. Constantinople preserved Greek learning, developed Orthodox Christianity, and served as Europe's shield against Eastern invasions. One administrative decision created 2 civilizations with radically different fates. Diocletian wasn't a great general. He was a brilliant manager. He doubled the army's size to 400,000 soldiers. He created the bureaucracy to pay them. He designed a succession system that worked perfectly until human ambition broke it. His solutions created problems that lasted centuries. The East-West division he formalized for administrative convenience became a permanent fracture in Western civilization: Orthodox versus Catholic, Greek versus Latin, Constantinople versus Rome. When you're managing something too big for one person, do you divide authority or find better tools? Diocletian chose division, and we're still living with the consequences. His story reveals something fundamental about power and scale. Rome's crisis wasn't about weak emperors or strong enemies. It was about organizational capacity. The empire had grown beyond what its systems could manage. Diocletian didn't conquer new territory or win decisive battles. He built systems, tax formulas, supply chains, administrative hierarchies, succession rules. For 20 years, those systems held. So they failed not because they were poorly designed, but because they required cooperation from people who had every incentive to defect. And the slave's son, who became emperor, understood that empires run on logistics, not glory. His palace still stands in Split, a monument to the administrator who saved Rome by admitting its limits.